Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Friday, January 22nd. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am here to go over a really great 11-game NBA DFS slate for this Friday evening. We started out with 13 games. A couple of COVID games were canceled, but we still have a big full slate with a ton of options on our 11-game NBA ticket tonight. Now, a couple of things. What I'm going to do is go through each individual game as we normally do. Hello, Andrew, by the way. He's usually on with me today. He is enjoying some family time, so I hope you're having a great time there. We will go through each game. I'll go over the injuries when we get to each game. We'll talk about basically the line, how it affects play here as far as the spread and the over-under. We'll talk about teams that are on back-to-backs, either first or second game. And then we're going to go over defensive efficiency and pace, see if we can really start building some ideas of some cornerstones and some value plays, and maybe a few contrarian plays that we can put into some of our lineups. So yesterday we went over usage per teams. We're going to do that every so often as well. And tomorrow we're going to go into defensive real plus minus. The DR PM is a fantastic stat. It really looks at statistically how different teams guard certain positions. So we'll go over that on tomorrow's slate and just keep the information coming in. As always, you can, let me know what you think about the show, the content, any suggestions, stuff you like or dislike, and we always take that into account. You can reach me on Twitter at Joe Sarvati, JoeSarvadi. If you want to reach Andrew, it's at Language Olympic, and Shane is at DET Sports Shane. And on YouTube, DFS Coach Talk, certainly welcome to post any type of comments you'd like in there, and we'll respond to it. And the last thing, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please take a second. I think I pointed the wrong direction last time, but whatever of the four corners they're in, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. That's extremely important to us. And hit the little alarm alert button. So every time we have a new podcast post, you'll get an alert saying, DFS Coach Talk just posted a podcast, so you can check it out in plenty of time. So thank you very much for letting me get a lot of that stuff out of the way. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to go right through this slate. And I know it's 11 games. I don't want it to be a super long show. I know it gets a little tedious when it's super long, so I'm going to try to keep on motoring as much as I can through this entire group. Okay, first game on the slate, it is the Chicago Bulls at the Charlotte Hornets. The Bulls are 6-8. The Hornets are also 6-8. We have Chicago on the first night of a back-to-back, which will be interesting. We also have Wendell Carter Jr. Sort of teetering between questionable and doubtful. So there's a good chance he doesn't play, but we need to keep an eye on that news. Also, Patrick Williams has a bit of an injury. We also need to keep an eye on that. Charlotte is a 3.5-point favorite in this game, and the line is 227, which just happens to be the fourth highest number on the entire board. Not bad. Defensive efficiency-wise, Chicago's 27th, so they have not defended well fairly consistently all year. The Hornets, on the other hand, with that surprising start, come down to earth a little bit, but they are 9th in the league in defensive efficiency. The one thing that's always makes Chicago players in play, not only the bad defense, which drives up score and possessions, but they're second in the league in pace, hence the 227 total. So something to keep an eye on there and bring some of these guys into play. Charlotte is 19th. All right, a couple of things here. Value play possibility. Daniel Gafford, when he gets in there and plays 17 and 20, 21 minutes, generally does that with Wendell Carter in the lineup and Patrick Williams. I think he gets much more than that here. Good 25 to 28 minutes possibly, if for sure Wendell Carter Jr. is listed out, and he is extremely dirt cheap. So there's a possible buy down center that can really make a lot of things happen in the lineup, but we need to see that news. It would be great. It's a necessity for Carter to be out. It'd be even better if Williams joined him. But Gafford's active. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to get blocks. It's a matter of the minutes, the opportunity. And if he's, like I say, if he's plugged in for 25 to 30, if they're shorthanded at the big, I am very interested in him today. On the also, Zach LaVine, you can't deny he's been just absolutely on fire. I really think he's been playable, but his price has now come up quite a bit. And they have Satoransky back today and Arcidiakono's playing. So all of a sudden, a backcourt that was Kobe and Zach LaVine, basically all you could play, and there were nights they were both smashing, has become a little crowded. And Kobe, I think, is feeling the biggest sting of that, as he's had a few bad games. He had one game with 0 points. I don't know if he's feeling the heat of those guys trying to take minutes or what the situation is. But, I wouldn't blame anybody for playing Zach LaVine, but I'm not going to mess around with the Chicago backcourt today. On the other side of the ball, the Charlotte Hornets. Interesting, we've got this crazy 3-man guard rotation of Graham, Rozier, and Ball. And, Ball has been the most productive. Rozier has had games where he's nailed a bunch of threes. And Devontae Graham, he's made value a few times. So none of them are bad plays. But the fact that the case is that none of them are bad plays makes them questionable for me. I err on the side of when guys are splitting minutes at a position, it just creates a problem for me. I don't want to lose even that 3 to 5 minutes that you lose in a rotation when somebody's hot or maybe somebody else finishes the game. It just, removing that possibility of those extra 10 or 15 DFS points can make all the difference in the world. Gordon Hayward has been terrific this year. He is dinged up a little bit. He's back now. They say he's fine. I like the matchup for him a lot. His price is a little high, but Gordon Hayward is certainly in play for me. He is going to be in my player pool. I think this is the kind of game with a massive pace up, with Chicago being second in the league, that really gives him the opportunity to do some scoring. We also, the big news on Charlotte's side is Cody Zeller is possibly back tonight. He's a game time decision, questionable, coming off a bad wrist injury. So, not really, it's non-sequential to me because I'm not going to play Biyombo anyway. PJ Washington would be the one for me that would take the hit if Cody Zeller comes back, because the Hornets have had success going small ball and playing PJ at center, with Cody and Bismack splitting minutes at center. I think that squeezes those extra points from PJ. So really, the only guys I'm looking for at in this game are Gafford as a possible value play if the other guy is out, and Gordon Hayward if you can fit him in salary-wise. Okay, game 2. We've got the Houston Rockets at the Detroit Pistons. Houston is 4-9. Detroit is a pretty bad 3-11, possibly one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league without question. Both teams are on the first night of a back-to-back, which could have some effect. Detroit somehow, some way, is a 3.5-point favorite in this game. I don't believe I've seen them favorite all season. That's the early line. The over-under is a paltry 217, which is last. Defensive team efficiency, Houston's 13th, Detroit 25th. And then we have pace of play, Houston 6th, which is pace up for Detroit, and Detroit 24th. Not loving this game whatsoever. I get it with Wall out and Wood out. It creates some possible rostering here. I think DeMarcus Cousins is going to be over-owned, though. I think people are going to react to Wood being out and think Cousins is just going to play a boatload of minutes. I'm not completely sure with that. He hasn't done that this season. I know it's because Wood's been playing great, but he's been dinged up a little bit. He's played in spurts. I just don't know if I trust him, especially when we look at the ownership numbers and see that he's going to be just overwhelmingly owned. And I don't think it's really justifiable quite at this point. But he is cheaper, and I understand if people are looking at him. Victor Oladipo played the point. Wall's still out, and had a really good game 2 games ago. A little regression the second game, which we expected, but this game's against Detroit, and it's you got to expect Oladipo's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and I think he's a fine play. I think his price is still fair enough, and his running mate Eric Gordon. These are also the type of games that he shines in. When he gets big minutes and big opportunity, he can produce literally 40 plus DFS points. So I have no problem with looking at Oladipo and Gordon, one or both of them. I think they're both in play, and it doesn't break the bank. On the Detroit side, it's hard to figure. Jeremy Grant has been the consistent model of excellence for that team. He's just doing everything well, but his price is through the roof. So not crazy about that price, but I think he will have a good game. The other players just too volatile for me. I don't trust DeLon Wright, Wayne Ellington, and the other guards they're rotating in. Blake Griffin has been okay, but his price is pretty cheap. But we're not sure. You're not sure game to game how efficient he's going to be. I don't think he's the worst play, but he's just physically not the same person that he was, and I think it limits his ceiling for sure. Mason Plumlee, he's been consistent at center. There's just way too many good centers on here. I know his price is decent, and he has, I guess, a good matchup, but his usage is low. He doesn't get the ball. They don't run plays for him. It's basically a matter of his hustle, rebounding, and putbacks and things like that. So not going to go there either. All right, we're going to keep motoring. I am by all means trying to stay on target today. All right, Orlando at Indiana. Indiana, 4.5 point favorite, 217.5 over under, the second lowest. We have 2 decent defensive teams, Orlando 17 and Indiana 14. Pace of play is not great at all. Orlando 21st, Indiana 15th. So not a game you say, wow, this is going to be a high-scoring shootout. But there are some guys to consider here. Let's look at the Orlando side first. You have Cole Anthony that's playing the majority of time at point. Bone is the backup there, so he gets the play. His price is still decent, but it's crept up enough that doesn't make me really want to roster him right away. Plus, Evan Fournier's back, and he never saw a shot he didn't like. I don't think he's going to get enough minutes to pay value, even though he's cheap. And he can knock down some threes, but what he really does back is just suck some of the life out of wanting to play Anthony or Gordon or Vuk, because he's going to take a decent amount of shots. That also changes if Michael Carter-Williams is back. He's questionable, and if he's good enough to play, he'll get his 20 minutes or whatever in that rotation, and that will really shoot Anthony and Fournier in the foot as well. Vuk's been phenomenal, but we do need news on this game. Miles Turner is questionable. If he plays, it's definitely a tougher matchup for Vuk. Turner leads the league in blocks by a long ways, and he gets steals, and the double bigs with Turner and Sabonis in there, I think would match up really well with Gordon and Vukovic. And so I'm not going that direction. Now, if Turner's ruled out and Indiana has to go smaller and play Sabonis at center, I think it changes the dynamic. I think that at that point, You can look at either Gordon or Vukovic, not both, but I think one of the two becomes in play because you're going to have some mismatches inside in the paint. Malcolm Brogdon is terrific. I'd love to roster him here. His price is super high though now, and that is a concern. I don't want to pay up that high for a guy in a game like this with decent defense and a very slow pace. So that's pretty much it. Again, we need the Turner news, and that may affect playing one of the Orlando bigs for me. I love Sabonis. He's probably my favorite DFS player in the league. Not thrilled with this matchup, though, for the cost that he is. He's up there with the big boys, so I'm going to pass there today. All right, we are going at a good pace here, so I am going to try to continue that without any slowing down whatsoever. Brooklyn and Cleveland. Brooklyn Nets 9-7, Cleveland 7-7. I think 7-7 for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the fact they almost beat Brooklyn in that overtime game, they'd be 8-6. Bickerstaff gets my vote for Coach of the Year so far. Amazing what he's done with that group and I'll tell you, it's going to get more confusing there because Andre Drummond played fantastic in the first half, didn't get much time in the second half. It was the Josh Allen show, the newly acquired Josh Allen. So they get to play Brooklyn again right away. That's his old team. So, for me in this situation, it creates some confusion, and I'm wondering if it's going to cause some issues in the Cleveland locker room because I don't know if they're planning on trading Drummond. That would make the most sense at this point, or what's going to go on. But, you just wonder what's going to happen in that situation. Indiana not Indiana, but Brooklyn is a 7.5-point favorite on the road, and Kevin Durant probably will not play. He's listed at questionable. He's played an enormous amount of minutes for this team already, and they're on the first night of a back-to-back. They have it listed right now as basically load management for his injury of coming back from the torn Achilles. So I can't imagine that he suits up. I think they'd be crazy to risk that at this point. They still have Kyrie and Harden with the rest of that team. I think they can go there and beat Cleveland. Even though Cleveland gave a great game last go around, my prediction is KD sits and Brooklyn rolls. So, part of that makes me not want to go this direction in this game. But here's the thing, it's 225. 225 just happens to be the second highest over-under on the board. 227 in that Chicago-Charlotte game is the highest. But the 225 number is really a decent number. We know their game just completely blew up last time around, but that was double overtime. Defensive efficiency, you have Brooklyn 21st, Cleveland 3rd, but I think that's going to come down to earth a little. But here's the problem. This is what makes me not want to just dive on this game. Pace of play for Brooklyn 20th, which, is it going to go up? Not when Harden has the ball, because he's going to slow down. He slows down offenses. But if Irving has the ball, I think they'll run more. So, it's yet to be seen. We just don't have enough sample size. We have one game with the three superstars on the floor, and they all did great. So we need to see how that develops. Cleveland, on the other hand, is 28th. So you're talking the third slowest team in the league. That's certainly going to take some possessions away from Brooklyn. So if you're going to roster someone and you want to spend up, I think you'll see a ton of ownership that goes to Harden, and you'll see a decent amount of ownership that goes to Irving. I think either one of those guys is going to get a lot of play for several reasons. Without Durant there, all of that usage, which his thumbprint, handprints, whatever you want to call them, are all over every game. He's either rebounding, assisting, scoring, putbacks. He's just phenomenal. And so with him out of there, I don't think it opens up as much for the bench guys, like the Jeff Greens or, DeAndre Jordans, all the other guys that are going to get rotational minutes, TLC, all of those guys, Joe Harris. But I think a lot of that usage is going to go right back to the two other studs, Irving and Harden. So I think it makes them both playable. Harden's more expensive. I'm leaning towards Kyrie Irving here. It's the first night of a back-to-back. If Kyrie goes hard in this game and gets big minutes, I haven't read this. This is just my own sneaking suspicion, is that maybe he sits tomorrow or at least plays limited minutes when Durant comes back. That's just a gut feeling. So if that does happen, and I'll keep my eyes on the news to see if anything is stated, then, Kyrie goes hard today, and it should be awesome. Plus, he gets to go against the atrocious Cleveland backcourt defense, which has obviously gotten a ton better this year. Now, the reason why it got a ton better this year was because the historically poor Cleveland backcourt from last year, which was the worst ranked defensive efficient backcourt in the history of the NBA, had a rotation of Sexton, Garland, and Porter Jr. Well, we know Porter Jr. went berserk through all kinds of stuff and got traded. He's now with the Rockets. So he's gone. Garland is questionable, but he hasn't played in a long time. I'm not expecting him to suit up. So the reason that their defense has improved a little, Sexton's missed a ton. Last game he played against Brooklyn, he was completely unconscious, broke the slate. I don't expect that to come back. I mean, anybody that thinks that there's not going to be some serious regression there is not really dealing with reality. So I think Sexton backs up. He's too expensive for me. His poor defense is on the floor, which I think elevates Irving. And, after that, there's a few guys that you can consider. Nance has been getting a consistent run and been solid. And Jetty Osman has been consistent and solid, and their prices are good. I'm not touching the Drummond Allen thing. And really, after the Irving play, I don't think you need to go down and try to grab a secondary guy from Brooklyn just because Durant is out. I don't think you need the Jeff Greens, Jordans, or Harrises, like I said today. Stick with Kyrie or Harden. I don't think it's necessary to play both because I think there is potential that this game blows out with Brooklyn winning. I think that last game was phenomenal effort by Cleveland, but I just don't see them coming back to back with that. All right, quick drink. We go on to game 5. It is the Boston Celtics at 8-5 and the Philadelphia 76ers at 10-5. Interesting game here. Boston, is not on a back-to-back, so that's an advantageous position for them. Philly is on the first night of a back-to-back. So very interesting. Philly's a 4.5-point home favorite. The over-under is 222.5, which is fair. Defensive efficiency, Philadelphia is 18th. And Philly, I think, is 4th, and Boston is 18th, if I'm right, or maybe I have that flipped. But they're 4th and 18th anyway, which makes them combined a better defensive team efficiency here. And pace, Boston's 20th, Philly is 4th. So very interesting. There's a lot of moving parts in this because there's some people coming back from COVID, rotating. It's changing a lot of usage. Makes this game hard to really figure. Kemba Walker has been on a minutes restriction. That continues to increase. Jaylen Brown, has been the recipient of a lot of the usage with, of course, Tatum being out. But everything else has been sort of a mishmash. Smart, Williams, Ojale, Thompson, all all of the guys are rotating, getting minutes, sharing minutes. Sort of that's the way he coaches. He likes to use a deep bench, and what it does though is it takes a lot of these guys and makes them somewhat unplayable on the DFS side. Now, if Kemba has extended minutes, that's great, but he gets Ben Simmons defense or Danny Green or some real premier defenders. I think, Jaylen Brown has to stay in consideration. It's one of those scenarios where we said at the beginning, if Brown sits or Tatum sits, you have to seriously consider the other guy because those two guys really dominate usage for their team. Now, since Walker's come back, he is scooping a little bit of that away from the guy. So it doesn't make Brown a dead cinch lock, but he'd be the first person that I would look at on the Boston side. I don't want that conglomeration of Tice, Thompson, Williams, Ojeley, all those people. I'm not going to go there. On the Philly side, the interesting news here is Joel Embiid. Is he in? Is he out? Let's see real quickly. I'm going to do a live check-in here because it has everything to do with this game, how the pace is, the defense. He makes such an enormous difference from that standpoint defensively that he shifts in the entire game. Let me glance down here for any late news because I'm doing this in the morning. I want to make sure we have the latest news for you because I have one site saying he's not playing and another site saying that he is. So I do not see any recent news. So what I'm going to do is we need to follow this. I mean, obviously, the big difference this year for DFS for all of us is COVID has changed everything. I mean, it's changed everything in our lives, but it has changed DFS enormously because, everything that we've done in the past, the norms that we've followed, the way we're looking at the statistics, all of the stuff that has come into play, it's been, very easy to do because it's year over year of the same stuff, 82 games, playing 41 of those at home, 41 on the road in front of big crowds. The crowds make a difference. Having your full roster most of the time with one or two guys out, and, but now it's a different world. You've got about 10-15% of the games canceled every day. You've got a huge amount of players that have been on these protocols that are changing lineups. They can barely get 8 for a game, or they have to cancel, or they're utilizing guys that would be in the G League. On and on and on. And what it's done is it's created a much bigger variance of all of the way that we're looking at this. For the pros, those of us that do this for a living, it's an adjustment, and we're adjusting on the fly. I think it's very advantageous for the Coach Talk team because we go through this and we hand build. We're watching, we're seeing what's going on, we're looking at rotations, we're seeing who the coach is playing down the stretch. All of those pieces that you can put together by putting all of that information in one place. Whereas all of the folks that just dump everything into an optimizer and try to spit out all these lineups and really just try to cover their bases, I don't think they're getting the true optimization of doing that they've been able to in the past because all of the criteria is different. Everything's changed. No home crowds, down to 72 games, multitudes of guys sitting out, usage fluctuating all over the place. So there's a lot more variance. And what we're trying to do here at Coach Talk is take it game by game, look at it from the coach's direction, look at it from the players and how this is all flowing, and then hand building a lineup or two that really fits all the criteria that we're looking for. So anyway, I wanted to mention that anyway, and it just fit into talking about this because this is a big piece of news. If Embiid's in, defensively, they are just so much better, and it stifles definitely some of the Boston side. Again, Jaylen Brown's the only guy I'd consider from the Boston side. On the Philly side, Embiid, if he's in, is always dangerous. This is the first night of a back-to-back for the Sixers. That's why there's some mixed news on it. Does Embiid play tonight or tomorrow night or limited minutes? So I'm not going to go Embiid even if he does run, just because with the back-to-backs, it always concerns me with him. Tobias Harris has been steady as a rock, but he does face some of these grit and grind Boston defenders that can cause him some trouble, and like Ojale, Williams, etc. So not a big fan there. The thing that stinks, though, is Seth Curry is back. He's probable, and that just blows out of the water the whole Tyrese Maxey, who was awesome play for a while. Then when, of course, Shake Milton came back, he broke the slate a couple of nights, and now you've got Curry back, and Simmons is there. So I have no idea how Doc is going to rotate and get minutes for all those guys, but they all have earned minutes. And Danny Green, who, I badmouthed him because he killed me that one day as he was 0 for 11 from the field, but then he proceeded the next two games to drain 16 threes. So you can't throw him out of the rotation, plus he's a fine defender. So I say all of that to say I want 0. I'm not taking 3 Advil at the beginning of the slate and 3 in the middle of the slate to calm my headache because Simmons, Curry, Shake, Maxey, Danny Green, Korkmaz, all these guys are trying to play minutes, and it just blows you out of the water. So if for some reason Embiid sits, Howard vehemently in play because he gets 1 million rebounds. But even though this game is a nice 222.5, I trust the defense, not crazy about the pace, and this is not going to be my go-to game. Okay, we're almost halfway. We are at number 5 here, and it is, are we at 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are at the 6th game. Look at this, 6 of 11. Miami Heat at 6 and 7, Toronto 5 and 9. Heat is on the first night of a back-to-back, and we know not too many teams have been ravaged by the coronavirus sit-out scenario than Miami. They haven't had a full team since, I don't know if they have this year. But Toronto's a 2.5 home favorite, even though home is Tampa. The over-under is 220.5. So this becomes interesting. The monster news here is that we need to know if Tyler Hero is going to play. He's questionable. And Pascal Siakam is questionable, but to me sounds a little more like doubtful. So I'm going to do this preview if Siakam sitting, which changes everything. I talk about it all the time. He's one of the higher usage guys. He certainly clear the floor for him all the time. So his presence not being there just makes me put a huge circle around Lowry, Van Vliet, and of course our man Chris Boucher. I think all 3 of those guys need to be considered. On the Miami side, you've got Tyler Hero, Vincent's, like I said, questionable. Vincent is probable, but we're not positive on Goran Dragic. He's questionable as well. We know Jimmy Butler's still out. So, their lineup, it could be a great game for Mr. Vincent, the rookie, if Hero and Dragic are out. I would play him in a second at that number. Duncan Robinson has been solid, man. He just drains threes after threes after threes. I think he had 8 again in the last game. And, he is completely 3-point dependent. So if, whoever guards him, and Lowry, Van Vliet, and Anunoby are all good defenders. So Robinson's going to get a little bit tougher defense. And if he's not hitting north of 5 threes, he's not going to make his value. So there's definitely some concern there. Kelly Olynyk's been fine, but they do have guys they're rotating. Precious, who I called Princess, and they're still getting teased about that. But Mr. Achua gets minutes, so that makes me not super comfortable there. Bam Adebayo is a terrific play. I mean, I had him last go around. He's fantastic. And if go-to guys like Hero and Dragic are out, or even either one of them, Bam becomes a much more focal point in all aspects of the game for Miami. And if one of those 2 at least are out, Bam becomes somewhat of a plug and play for me. because I think they'll run the offense through him, so he'll have assists. He should get a lot of rebounds. Toronto cut Alex Len. He was signed, I believe, by somebody that just lost the center. It'll come to me as we're going here. Houston, I think. The Rockets, I think, picked up Alex Len. But anyway, so Baines gets a very small run, and then it's Boucher. With Siakam out of there to not steal any of the rebounds, Boucher's a huge play for me also. I think that he fits perfectly in this game, and I think that you can look at either Lowry or Van Vliet. I always try to choose between one of them, but this could be a key game for me. If I go Bam and say Lowry and Boucher, then this becomes the most important game on the slate. But I like it. I think the matchup's good. The guys that are sitting become the true story here. If we have Hero, Dragic, Siakam sit, then this usage-wise just squeezes down to those guys I mentioned and becomes a serious play. All right, Game 7. Atlanta at Minnesota. Atlanta's 7-7, Minnesota 3-10. They are one of the other two teams grappling with Detroit for the worst team in the league. And this game's interesting. We've got Atlanta 6.5-point road favorite, and Minnesota's on the first night of a back-to-back. The total here is 222. We have defensive efficiency, Atlanta 8th, which they're causing turnovers and a lot of trouble for people. Minnesota 26, terrible. Atlanta's pace, they're 11th, so they do push the ball, and Minnesota is 8th. So there's a lot of pace here. This could be one of those sneaky games that is the highest scoring of the night. It's very, very possible. It's second highest on the board and third highest on the board in Vegas, but I think it could be up there. Now we've got big news here as well. Two of the Atlanta starters, Reddish and Hunter, are both questionable, which changes the whole rotation. We know Bogdanovich is out with the broken kneecap. Gallinari's close, but it doesn't look like he's playing tonight. He should be back this weekend. So it leaves a lot of usage, big time usage, for Trae Young and, of course, Mr. Kevin Huerter, and then the big guys, John Collins, who had a solid game, and Chris Capella, who broke the slate last time out. Chris Capella has to be in play for everybody in a game like this against Minnesota with no Cat. So he has to be right up there. Trae Young, who hasn't really been himself, but I like him a lot in this game. I have no problem paying up for Trae Young. I think against the Russell and Beasley defense, it feels like more of a bust-out game, especially if he doesn't have his running mates Reddish and Hunter out there. There's a lot more shots going to be available. And then Kevin Huerter, the pricing is back normalized. They had him at 9,500. It was an entry error or algorithm error or something with DraftKings, but it was hilarious. He was 9,500 on one and 5,500 on the other. So his price is back down. So it's worth looking at all four of those guys, really. I mean, this game could be one of the higher stacked games. It really could. I think there's going to be a lot of ownership here. But I'm favoring right now Young and Capella if I can afford them. Okay, Minnesota. What do we talk about with Minnesota? There's some value there. I mean, Vanderbilt has played a decent amount of minutes and toyed around with, having a little bit of value type games at a cheap price. So you got to look at them. Naz Reid sort of sharing with multiple people. Don't trust that. Okogie's a game time decision, so don't feel comfortable there. They're still missing a bunch of people, including Hernan Gomez, Rubio, Towns, etc. So it comes back down to the same two guys it does every day this past week with Minnesota, and that's D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. Beasley is sort of grossly overpriced for the way he's been playing. I've played him a few times because of the low ownership and expected him to just blow up, and he hasn't done so. But you can't hit me in the head too many times to get me to change my mind, because I still think Beasley is a decent play, especially with Hunter off the floor And Hunter's a tremendous defender, and he guarded Beasley a good chunk of the game last time out. So I like Beasley a little. D'Angelo Russell's the guy that's going to get most of the ownership for Minnesota, and deservedly so. I mean, this certainly could be a game where Trae Young and D'Angelo Russell go back and forth, 3 for 3, penetration finish for penetration finish. So certainly in play without any question. And I think this game, you do need a guy or two, a little bit of action from this game to make out your entire slate. So stay focused on that one, and let's make sure we get the news on Reddish and Hunter. All right, we have 4 games left. That's it. We are rocking. The Dallas Mavericks 7-7. The Spurs 8-7. Old Pop's got his team up there at over 500 at 8-7. So we've got Dallas on the first night of a back-to-back is a 2.5-point road favorite, which is surprising, but it's Vegas, reacting to having Luka and Porzingis back on the floor consistently, and that does change that team a lot. The 222.5 total is pretty darn stout. Defensive efficiency, Dallas is 6, San Antonio is up to 12. So not bad on the defensive side. And then here's the other side of that. You've got Dallas 22nd in pace, San Antonio 14th. So, you look at it and you wonder, why is this the second highest total when you have pretty good defensive teams? You got a team on a back-to-back, and that both teams are pretty slow. So, that does raise a red flag for me. There's going to be a ton of people that pay up for Luka and jump on the Porzingis bandwagon from the last game. I'm not going there today. And, I want Dallas to do well, of course, but I just don't want to pay that high up for, when it's getting to the point like with Luka, where if he doesn't get 65 to make value and a little extra, you're disappointed. And, it's weird watching the games when you have him in DFS and he has like a 15-point triple-double and he's playing well, and you're like, I'm screwed. He's got a snowflake. He's not going to make his number. It's just, I don't think it's the perfect spot. And if you're going to pay that high up for Luka, especially on this big of a slate, it has to be sort of a perfect spot. Porzingis is just going to get overowned. That's why I'm not going there. I think his ownership, everybody's just going bonkers. He shot like 80% the last game. That's an anomaly. That's not going to happen. Yes, he's playing great. He's getting more minutes. I think he's going to do fine. But for the amount of ownership and the potential to not make value, it makes it somewhat of an easy pass for me. On the San Antonio side, it's interesting. LaMarcus Aldridge has been inconsistent, sort of big games, and then some games where he just vanishes, where Doc decides he's going to go with Pirtle and play a little bit more inside ball. So, that is a concern. Johnson is just too overpriced, and, that's certainly a concern. DeMar DeRozan has stepped up. He usually plays well against the Mavs, so I'm going to look at DeRozan a little bit. His price is fairly decent. Lonnie Walker, 2 hit or miss on this big of a slate. DeJounte Murray's another guy I have interest in, but I just don't like his price. I wish it was just about $500 cheaper, and he'd be certainly a play for me. The guy that I like on Dallas, by the way, is Jalen Brunson. He's starting. He's getting massive minutes. He's finishing games, and it's still low. So I know it's bizarre, but Jalen Brunson is my favorite play from this game. He makes salary work. He fits well. And if I had extra money to buy up at point, I would go DeJounte Murray or to DeMar DeRozan. Those two guys, I think, both will exceed value tonight. Okay, Oklahoma City, Los Angeles Clippers, Thunder 6-7, Clippers 11-4, quietly. And the weird thing is their stats haven't been great, but they're winning. That's all that matters. Clippers are a massive 13-point favorite, by far the biggest on the slate. The over-under is 220, and Defensively, neither one of these teams has played well. Thunder 19, Clippers 20th, which I still find amazing. Pace of play, the Thunder are 10th. Clippers are 27th. They are just beating people up in the half-court basketball set, and that's how they're winning. I had predicted for quite a while now that the Thunder were going to hit the skids. I mean, they've been winning with mirrors there, and I think the third of those three teams that I mentioned in Detroit and Minnesota being the third, the Thunder, and the Thunder are 6 and 7, but I just don't see how they're getting there. Shea is terrific. His usage is off the wall, but he's going to get doubles from the Clippers. He's going to get Pat Beverly up, chewing on his face. That's not going to be fun. George Hill has been inconsistent in splitting minutes with Diallo. Lugansdort, he was another slate breaker last time. He went absolutely nuts. But hello, Mr. Dort, meet Kawhi Leonard and see if that slows things down. Or even Nicholas Batum. Either one of them is a little bit different matchup. So I know Dort's cheap. I know he has the potential to smash, but consistently he's usually like an upper teens DFS player. Darius Baisley, again, up and down, rotates with several people that they've been utilizing, Poku, Chesky, whatever, and who please don't, put him in there. He is not anywhere close. He should be in the G League, actually. And then you're getting Muscala off the bench. But the guy that's the value here, and he is again, and until they raise his price, and as long as he's the starting center with Horford out, Isaiah Roby has consistently showed that he can play. He's athletic. He gets up and down the floor. He finishes at the rim, just super active. And I'll tell you, it's an amazing turnaround. This is a guy last year that was on the Mavericks roster, and they had him in the G League, and they just didn't think he was good enough. So they traded him to the Thunder for Patterson, who they ended up releasing. So they just basically were getting rid of him. And here he is, starting center for the Thunder a year later, and just his game is evolving, and he's playable at that definite salary and works in to especially the Stars and Scrubs builds. He's an excellent guy there. On the Clippers side, Pat Bev has been steady. He does a good job. Gets enough minutes that he's making value. So I think he's in play again. I don't want to pay up for George or Kawhi in this game because I really do think it blows out. I think this could be a Clippers 16, 18 point win. And so I don't want to pay up for either one of those guys. Not interested in Batum with some of the rotations that they have going now, and not interested in the Zubac and Mr. Oblaka splitting time. All right, 2 games left. I'm trying to get through it as fast as we can, but not miss a detail. We have the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns, both teams on the first night of a back-to-back, which complicates things a little bit. Denver is 7 and 7. Phoenix is 8 and 5. This game's at Phoenix. Phoenix is a 1-point favorite, so this should be a nail biter. The over-under is 219, which is fair. Defensive efficiency, Denver's 23rd. Phoenix is 11th. Very respectable. Problem, this is the alert button shining. Denver 25th in pace. Phoenix 29th, second to last. So we got a snail's crawl here. Paul walking it up, and then Murray walking it up and handing it to the Joker, and there's another 10 seconds. So this, if you're going to take people from this game, you need to figure out which guys are going to be the most efficient, because at this pace, with decent defense, this could be a game that stays under the number, or at least close. The fact that it's almost a pick'em game helps, but I'm not paying up for the Joker on an 11-game slate. Just like Luke, I'm not burning all my salary there, even though I'm still going to resemble a semi-stars and scrubs, but not to the extreme of the guys like that. My scrubs will be a little bit less scrubs, I guess. So I don't want to go with the Joker, although he's ridiculous. Jamal Murray certainly stepping out of that little early mini slump. Chris Paul's a tough defender, even at his age, though. he is a real irritant. So a little worried about Murray with his price rising a little bit, but he's still a good play in my book. In fact, I think he's the best play if you're going to dial up somebody from Denver. Porter Jr. may be back. He's questionable. That blows out of the water the whole Millsap. Jermichael Green is going to get crushed by that. Will Barton splitting still with Gary Harris and a multitude of people there. Not interested in any of those guys. On the Phoenix side, it's just been consistent, and Andrew has brought it up multiple times. They're winning. They're 8-5. They're a nice team, but they're not DFS friendly. The days where we used to be able to put Chris Paul in when he was at the Thunder and he'd get a 50 burger, it's not happening. The addition of Paul slowing the team down, playing more controlled, and getting the ball out of Booker's hands has really limited his ceiling. I've chased him a few times, and he doesn't even think about getting a 50 DFS points. It's like he used to almost on a nightly basis in the bubble. So very interesting that I don't feel comfortable with Paul or Booker or Ayton. Ayton has done fine. He's consistent, but he's not having those huge breakout games. And now the potential of getting in foul trouble with a Joker is a big concern. If you're looking for somebody on the cheap that's getting big minutes and both of them can shoot, it's Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. There are two guys that aren't bad one-offs to fill in if you need some value. So that's really all I've got for that one. All right, we're down to the last game, number 11, alone and done, almost finished. We've got the New York Knickerbockers on the second night of a back-to-back after playing last night and winning against the Sacramento Kings, who are a 4-point favorite, which is surprising. The Knicks are 8-8. They just won. No respect. They go play the Kings at 5-10, and they're dogs. So big surprise there. I guess go put your money on the Kings on betus.com.pa, because when the line looks backwards to me like this, it inevitably goes the other way. But man, I'm tempted to put a few bucks on the Knicks, even though it's a second night of a back-to-back. Problem is this game's only 218.5, so it's the third lowest number. Defensive efficiency, the Knicks are 5th. They are playing defense. They have bought into Tibbs. They're getting it done. Sacramento is a wonderful 30. Dead last. More reason that the Knicks should hang in there. Problem, though, alert button on the other side. The Knicks, the slowest team in the league. And Sacramento is 12th, which is not bad, but huge pace down game for them. So this is not a key game for me tonight. I do think the way Thibodeau handles his guys with multiple minutes, I don't think if they played 5 nights in a row, he'd give guys a break. So, immediately, to me, you have to consider Elf Payton, who's lower priced and makes value. RJ Barrett's been playing very well and getting to his number. And Julius Randle's been great. He's so expensive, though. It's very difficult to pay up for him at that number, but man, he's been making value every night. Bullock shot well last night, not interested in that. Was really let down last night by Quickly. I thought he'd get a little bit more run, but really the fact that Alec Burks came back has sort of blown everything up there. I like Alec Burks. I think he's a great play on most nights, but just after coming back, on a back-to-back, I don't know what to expect from Burks, which really jacks up that backcourt rotation. Really, the safest two guys are Barrett and Randle, like normal. I don't want the Robinson-Noel split and the lack of usage. Both of those guys are at about 11% usage. So not, if I'm going to pay up for a guy, it'll be one of those two Knicks. On the Sacramento side, again, it hurts because they're playing such a slow team, so it's a lot less possessions. Rashawn Holmes is tough, but he's got 2 shot-blocking, tall, lanky centers to deal with, and he's a little undersized, so I don't think it's the best situation for him. The big news there will be Bagley. He's questionable. If he plays, he's dangerous. Don't really want to go there, but his price is okay, but we need to see the news on him. Harrison Barnes has been up and down. Buddy Hield broke the slate almost the other day. He is very possible to have a great game, but it's come down to the De'Aaron Fox show there. And for me, if I'm going to go with a king, it's going to be the Fox. I'm going to let the Fox out of the hen house in this game if I do roster a king. He's not cheap enough to say, yes, he's definitely in, but he is good. I'm just not super comfortable with the Hield and Halliburton split and rotation of minutes there. So that is it, my friends. 22 teams, 11 games. We've looked at up, down, sideways, and backwards. I hope that gives you a concrete look at how to initially build your lineup. If you'd like additional help in finishing building that, look at us on dfscoachtalk.com. That's our website. You can sign up there, become a member for a week, month, annual. We have a special NBA package right now that we're doing with one of our partners, BetUS.com.pa. If you sign up with BetUS for the first time, deposit $149, then you get a free membership with Coach Talk all the way until April 1st. And you get to use that $149 in your BetUS account to make wagers. So you cannot beat that deal. Fantastic deal. We'd love to have you join us. We have a great community. We're growing. We're giving out all kinds of content and builds for Draftkings, Fanduel, and Yahoo. And, follow us on Discord throughout the day if you're a member. If not, follow us on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. We have a lot of contests going, all kinds of things happening. And again, last thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and alert button. We really, really do appreciate it. So that is the word, my friends. I hope that was a help. My goal is to stay under an hour, and I completed my goal. So let's go out there and crush it in DFS.